Hey folks, what's going on? Arm and Hammer here, and the following is really exciting. It is a 1 hour long conversation that I had with Matt Fraser out in Miami during Wadapalooza. Now, we talked about a whole lot of different stuff, and this podcast is going to range through a big variety of different moments. And one of the things that we talked about was why he's portrayed as almost a bad guy in the CrossFit space, why he seems to be portrayed as such an angry character. We also talked about when he first got into CrossFit and met a lot of the athletes who we see as legends, who at the time to him were just normal dudes who he was warming up with in the back before competing. And we also talked a little bit more about how private he is and how he sort of separates the line between the persona that he puts out there and the private life that he so cherishes to keep with Sammy and his close friends and family. And so I think it's a really good look at less of Matt Fraser, the athlete, and the sort of personality that we've gotten to know over the years, and more of a look behind the curtain of Matt Fraser as a person, as a man, making a living doing this crazy thing in competitive exercise. It was a lot of fun. It was a big treat. I really enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to the next opportunity to really chat for him for an extended sit down like this again. I hope you guys enjoy it, and I'll see you guys next time. And by the way, if you're watching the video, there's a portion in the middle, maybe like maybe 2.5 minutes long, maybe 3 minutes long, right around the middle where my camera had shut off. There's still audio, so the screen will go to black, but it'll come right back in just a few minutes. So if that happens, don't worry about it. And if you're just listening to this, well, imagine somewhere in the middle the screen goes black or something. I don't know. Either way, folks, thanks so much. I'll see you guys next time.
Matt, you're just saying that this is the second event you've ever been to that you're not competing at.
Yep. So I went to Granite Games, I think it was last year. And then
that's about it.
That's
crazy.
That was the first. Granite Games was the first competition I've ever been to and not competed. And so this is the second, and this is the one that, it's a half vacation, it's like a destination. So, you got the beaches, the nice weather, Vendor Village is set up. It's just a spectacle in itself. So, I'm having such a good time getting to hang out with all the people that they usually show up to the competitions, and I have to be like, sorry, I can't see you until after the competition. And then it's usually everyone leaves on Sunday night, and then I'm there on Monday, and I'm like, hey, you still here? And they're like, no, dude, I left. I have a job. And so, I'm actually getting to spend time with a lot of people that are coming in. And so, I'm just having the best time down here.
Yeah, I imagine. I mean, it's funny to look back, like the seasonal change probably has a lot to do with that, because usually the events that you would be at were really high stakes, like really high fucking stakes. And so why would you want to be in the middle of Vendor Village?
Yeah, that's, usually right now it's, the open is usually pretty important. So, it's getting into that. But I competed in Dubai like a month ago. And so now this is my off season. So traveling is way easier when I'm not required to get 10 hours sleep, when I'm not required to do 2 or 3 training sessions a day, when I'm not required to be eating a perfect diet. I can literally just go with the flow, and it's like, oh, you only got 5 hours sleep. Oh, that's fine. Like, just have an extra cup of coffee, and yeah, we couldn't get into the gym today. It's like, oh, who cares? I'm in the off season, So it's the first time I've gotten to travel like a normal person in a long time. I don't have a whole second suitcase of training equipment,
right?
Requirements for gym allotment time, and so I've been having a blast.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I don't know if you remember, but almost exactly 5 years ago is the first time we met at ECC.
Yeah,
you came up to the hotel room, did something almost exactly like this.
Oh,
we did a podcast.
Right. That's right. I remember that with Scott.
Yeah, we did the wadcast.
Yeah,
and I remember that was what, January of 2014. So you hadn't been to the games yet. It was like
I hadn't won regionals.
You hadn't won regionals yet. It was you were just like, you had won. You'd done really well at ECC. You'd been doing really well at these small championships.
well promoted ECC, and I think they had like 12 games athletes there. That was an eye-opening experience for me.
Yeah,
I still talk about that competition all the time because, that was the first time I met Chris Spieler. I met Tommy Hackenbrook. So it was just wild. And, the stories from it, I remember I came out of the warm-up area, and it was like before the fourth or fifth event. And so I don't know. It's not even that I got to meet these athletes for the first time. This is the first time I'm learning their names. I knew nothing about the sport. And, I'm come out of the warm-up area and to meet O'Keefe and Bergeron. And they're like, hey, how's it going back there? Like, are you talking to anyone? Like, basically, like, I'm a kid at daycare.
Yeah,
and they're
did you make friends?
Did you make friends
today?
And I remember telling them, I was like, there's this guy back there. I'm having a great time with him, like just hanging out. I was like, his name's like Tommy Hucklebuck. and both of them just like, Tommy Hackenbrook. And I was like, yeah, that's his name. Super nice guy. And Bergeron was like, that's Tommy Hackenbrook. He's like the 2-time affiliate champion. You should learn his name. And I was like, like when he said affiliate champ, I didn't even know what that meant.
Right.
And I was just like, oh, well, he's nice. Like that's all I cared about. And I got to meet Spieler, and that was kind of the first introduction to this whole network of people.
Yeah. It is really interesting to see, because one of the sort of like things that came out of that weekend was, I remember we had a great time. It was like the event was really cool. The interview we had was really cool. Just overall, it was just a really good time. And then, like a couple of games seasons later, everyone is like, why is Matt Fraser so angry all the time? I was like, that what are you talking about? Like, that wasn't at all the experience that I had with him. Like,
I think a lot more of that has come out in the last year or two of, I realized this issue that I created, I'm the one that acts the way I do in competition. And before, I didn't have many interview opportunities or videos done on me. So I never had really a platform to make it known that, I'm not angry like that all the time. I usually fairly lighthearted, but I'm not a very extroverted person. I'm usually like, I see Sammy and O'Keefe during the day. That's it. Those are the people I interact with. So they're usually the only ones that get to see me day to day. Everyone else, I'm only in the public's eye for 5-6 days a year.
mm-hmm.
And so rightfully so, people just assume that's how I am all the time. That's their first impression. That's their only impression. But, I've tried to make it known the last year or two, like when the Road to the Games videos were coming out, and I'd say I try to be a nice person,
I swear I am a nice guy.
And they were kind of asking like, well, why is there that switch between competition mode and training mode, and I had it took me a while to figure it out, and I had to point out, like, I work 6 days a year. Like, basically my livelihood and my income is based off how I do on those 6 days. Like the few days at regionals, few days at the games. And that's going to affect the rest of my life, the contracts that I'm able to get, and anything.
Yeah.
My ranking in CrossFit is off those 6 to 7 days. And so during those 6 to 7 days, I don't care what you're doing, what you're saying, anything. I'm focused on the task at hand, and that's being the best competitor I can be. And so I literally cut everything out of my life.
Of course.
The last few years at the games, I haven't even seen my parents until after the final event, and they bring them onto the competition floor. Like, I see Sammy, and I don't even see her during the day. She comes to the room in the morning, gets me, like, she'll like bring me breakfast, and like we'll hang out for 10-15 minutes, have coffee together. And then my only interaction during the day is with O'Keefe, and he has my coach's band, so he's taking care of me during the day. He's getting me what I need. But even during competition week, Sammy and I don't share a hotel room. She has her place, I have my place. So I literally cut out every single thing in my life just for those 4 days. You know,
Have you always been like that? Like in competition mode, you just sequester yourself?
You know, so I competed in the weightlifting for 10 years. Knowing the things I know now, if I were to go back and do it again, or if I had suggestions for my younger self, I would have changed a lot. You know, I was a young kid when I competed, and so I competed like a young kid. You know, I trained like a young kid. You know, stuff wasn't probably the smartest or the best, but it's what I knew at the time, and so that's what I did. Now like the it's just the stakes are higher. You know.
Yeah.
You know, over a 5-day competition, the prize is $300,000, and then never mind the sponsorships that come with it. So, you know, like that's a good annual income, and it all comes down to those 4 or 5 days. So, you know, I think it was just gradually, I got into it, and, you know, the first year was very lax. You know, I had no expectations. Didn't know what I was doing. So that was just taken for what it was. And then I was lazy the whole next year and kind of had a kick in the teeth. And so then I realized, like, after those first 2 years, it's like, this is a very real possibility. I may never win this thing. I may always be the lovable loser, or the, you know, the just not the results I want.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I think I realized, okay, like, if I want to do this and I want to do it right, I want to get the results I want, you know, I'm cutting every variable out of my life to just focus on what I have control
Just
over.
maximize this.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
That makes total sense. I mean, honestly, some of the media that was coming out, like probably after the 15 games, when, you know, it was like second place, and there was like there's this expectation going into the 2015 games. It was like, this is Matt Fraser's year. He's gonna pass the buck, and he's gonna take the crown, or whatever.
Yeah,
it
so
is,
you know
right?
that, and, you know, I was guilty of that too. You know, I don't think I externalized it, but, you know, that was the feeling I had inside, and, you know, it was because I had no idea what I was doing at the 2014 games. I was brand new to the sport, and with making some huge mistakes, I still pulled second place. And then Rich announces his retirement, and I'm like, oh, I was second. He's retiring.
It's mine.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, yeah, why would this not end up this way?
Right.
And yeah, and then, so, you know, the whole year reflected that, of just me resting on my laurels, you know, bad diet, bad sleep schedule, not dedicating the time and energy I needed to in the gym, not listening to the people that knew what they were talking about, had experience with it, and they were trying to tell me how to do things. And I was like, no, you don't know what you're talking about. And it reflected, you know, I ended up where I should have ended up. It wasn't like I had a bad weekend. Yeah, I had a terrible weekend, but it reflected perfectly my whole year of training.
Yeah.
So why would I expect any different? So yeah, like, I was guilty just like everyone else.
Yeah.
And then since then,
It's been completely
I've
different.
never made that mistake again of going to the games confident of, like, it's mine. Never once. And I don't think I ever will have that feeling again, because I know how wrong things can go in like that.
Sure. I mean, even this past year, things almost went terribly wrong right off the bat. I mean, you fell off that fucking rig so hard.
Well, yeah. So I mean, something as simple as that. Like, if I had landed a tiny, like, an inch another way, like, who's to say, like, I wouldn't have caught my ankle in a weird direction,
Yeah.
and games are over. 2017, I fucking blew out my LCL, like, day one, and that could have ended things so quickly. And so, you know, I see it. It's kind of exactly how, you know, why I do what I do in the final events when there's a minimum work requirement. I'm going out there comically slow, and people are like, well, it's a parallel handstand push-ups. You do 100 of those a week. You know, why are you being cautious? Because a fluke can happen, that 1 in a million time that you miss the parallel and tip to the side. Like, I could break my wrist, not be able to hit the minimum work requirement, and my weekend was for nothing. The whole
Right.
year was for
You get
nothing.
like zero.
Yeah.
You don't even get like second place. You get zero.
Yeah, you're not allowed on the podium if you don't hit the work requirement. So I'm fully aware of those situations and the risk of it, and so I try to assess those and attack it as appropriately as possible given the situation.
For a little while, I thought there was like a conscious turn to the heel for you. Like, I thought you were like, you know what? CrossFit needs a bit of like a bad guy. And like I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna be like a little sour and I'm gonna like look like I haven't slept very well and like I'm gonna mess with people right now.
No, and I feel like there's a lot of people making the narrative that they see fit. So perfect situation of watching the competition. You have one person that's looking around the competition floor, seeing where the competition is, and the announcers say, "Oh, rookie mistake. You got to stay in your lane, buddy. Like you can't be pacing off other people. You have to do what you're capable of." The guy in the next lane over does it, and they're, "Oh, that's a seasoned veteran move. He's seeing where the competition is. He's only going as fast as he has to." Well, which is it?
Right.
It's either it's a rookie mistake or it's a season like
a veteran move, right?
A calculated move. And so a lot of that is just depending on the person and the personality. So when I came out, I didn't think I was doing anything different than most of these guys have done before. Like, why would I be? No, like when I go on the competition floor, I'm in competition mode. I'm not looking for the hugs at the end of the competition. No, I'm there to compete. I want to do the best I can do. And for a long time, it got perceived as I was angry. I was bitter. And that probably goes with the narrative of I had lost 2 years in a row.
Right. It's like someone else is putting that story in there.
So they see that aggression and take it in a negative way. Whereas someone else who's coming off a couple event wins or like some success, and they're showing that same determination, grit, anger, whatever it is, and they're saying, "Oh, good for him. He's not satisfied with his accomplishments yet. He's still a competitor and all this." So doing the exact same thing, but depending on the person or the prior interactions or whatever it is, the narrative gets spun a different way.
Of course.
And so I've done some soul searching on that of like, why is my stuff being perceived in a negative way when so-and-so is doing the exact same thing and it's a perk, and I just had to realize, the people I'm close with, the people that matter to me, I'm good to them, they're good to me, and they know why I'm doing what I'm doing. And those are the relationships that matter. What do I care what some random person thinks of me? I'm not sitting down having dinner with them. I'm not relying on them like for the rest of my life,
Yeah.
So I keep the people close to me know the reasons. I make sure I'm good to them. They're good to me. And however anyone else wants to spin the narrative, they can kind of do what they want. In the last year, when people are in town doing some filming, I try to explain myself, but I can only do what I can do.
Right.
If they have a negative connotation of me, it is what it is.
So much of it also comes down to this idea of like, you can project anything you want onto like a canvas, right? And when they don't know you and all they get is, this like 20 hours of footage of you basically competing and acting in a certain way and like seeing it within just that context. And, you're a private guy. You're not like every day posting on your social media, like, here's my morning milkshake, like.
Well, that's a huge thing too of like, there are a lot of people that what you see on their Instagram or Facebook, whatever it is, that's them. That's what you get when you see them in person. And I think that's great. There's other people that I've watched their social media for years and been like, oh man, I'm going to get along with this person. Great. And then I meet them and I'm like, oh, you're a terrible person. Like you're mean.
Oh, that sucks.
But like you watch their social media and it's like, oh, they're the nicest people.
Yeah. And
then you meet the real them. And so, I mean, I'm sure that's what a lot of people see in me of like, some of the interviews are in competition. It's like, I